Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 354. Beyond Good and Evil. Part 4. At this moment, Bai Hyung was watching the screen of duet between good and evil at the bureau. The stage of the second constellation and demon war will be the reincarnation island located in the Dark Fault. The moment the great Dakibi's declaration was heard, all the Dakibis of the bureau were in an uproar. No, why the island all of a sudden? Why are the great Dakibis thinking? Even the great Dakibis couldn't set the stage for the 80th main scenario. If the will of the star stream didn't move. The star stream is willing to open the 80th main scenario. A new main scenario has been created. Bai Hyung was surprised by the system message. Did the star stream really move? The series of shocking scenario changes made Bai Hyung stunned. Bai Hyung. A revelation was just received. A revelation? After a while, a new panel was prepared. The screen hadn't surfaced yet, but Bai Hyung knew what it was. The Plate of Revelation. An unknown slab that only the constellations and demon kings who had acquired the power of revelation could see. The material was unknown and even the space and coordinates weren't clearly known. The Bureau could only observe the strange object. Each nebula had a different name for this plate. Divine Revelation, a single word, the old devil's whisper. It was an unidentified object that spoiled the information of the future, forcing the Bureau to pay attention to it. The method that the constellations of the star stream used to read the future was simple. Sometimes there was a hole in the Plate of Revelation and a series of story fragments would be released from the hole. The fragments that spilled out had information about the future. The constellation and demon kings recognized it, combined words, and used this to predict the future or read their fortunes. The stigma called revelation was made. It was actually just reconstructing these words. Bai Hyung asked, "Is there another turn in the Plate of Revelation?" Yes, it has been a problem since it started shaking a few years ago. The original version of the revelation released future information, but it didn't have a significant impact on the Bureau's scenario probability. The future reconstructed through the revelations were uncertain and unclear. However, there had been a crack in this plate since a few years ago. Through that crack, whole information of the future came through. A strange hole occurred a few days ago. The hole that occurred a few days ago caused a problem in the probability that couldn't be overlooked even by the star stream. Information that shouldn't have been passed on crossed through that broken hole without damage. Bai Hyung still had a headache when he thought about the work at that time. Strange strings had emerged through the hole for a while. 3 ways to survive in a ruined world. The name seemed like the title of a book, and the constellations of the star stream fell into chaos. What is 3 ways to survive in a ruined world.txt? Does ruin mean the of every scenario? The constellations who neglected the scenarios and remained relaxed started to act like their feet were on fire after this revelation was released. The rumors about the apocalypse spread, and there were rumors about the end of the star stream. The screen is ready. Bai Hyung watched the black-white screen nervously. A few words that emerged through the hole caused the entire star stream to shake. What type of revelation would occur this time? After a while, the screen of the revelation appeared. Then there was a very small hole in the center of the plate. There is no change, eh? The next moment, the Dakibis were astonished by the whitish object that appeared inside the hole. It was someone's mouth. Microphone test? The Dakibi cried out, "What is this?" The Bureau was in chaos as the mouth kept on talking. "Can you hear me? I'm going to give you a revelation now. I'll only show you for a second, so look and remember." Along with the clear and cheerful voice, there was the sound of pages turning. After a while, fragments of a story passed through the hole. How to survive in a ruined world, the 3rd way. The revelation appeared clearly. It was truly like a divine revelation. That method is on Reincarnation Island. The story fragments scattered in the air and the voice said, "Have you seen it? Then goodbye." The hole closed and the voice disappeared. Bai Hyung muttered, "Oh my god." None of the shocked dakibis of the bureau could open their mouths. Bells were ringing from all over. The unstoppable inquiries of the constellations were pouring in. The duet between good and evil was still playing on the panel on the other side. I will say it once again. The voice of great Dakibi Baram rang out. The stage of the second constellation and demon war will be the reincarnation island located in the Dark Fault. After the duet between good and evil, our group immediately returned to Earth. All the way back to the industrial complex, the party members were excited. In particular, Young Hee-won and Lee Jae-hai were checking the performance of the plaques we received. Grand prize of duet between good and evil. In the star stream, the status generally rose only through the accumulation of stories. However, there were extremely rare star relics that raised the status without needing the accumulation of stories. This was the case with the plaques awarded at the duet between good and evil. My sword seems lighter. Is this enough to be able to swing Hyunsung Ajusi lightly? Lee Jae-hai's murmur caused Lee Hyunsung to tremble. Certainly, the plaque was more effective than getting 2 quasi-myth grade stories. Given that all the quasi-myth grade stories I acquired were those I gained after suffering and dying, it was a tremendous boost. 5 million coins exchange ticket. In addition, they received 5 million coins as prize money. Ha, Doc SSI, we're rich now. I won't have to worry about coins for a while. Kids, how much did you get? Young Hee-won was busy asking questions to the children who received the Best Chemistry Award. Shin Yu-sung, honestly, I was a bit more active. Give me another 100,000 coins. What nonsense is this? It will naturally be split in half. It is the same with the story shares. Lee Hyun-sung stopped the children. The party members seemed to be in good spirits for their own reasons, but on the other hand, they were also glancing at me. In fact, there is a question that everyone hasn't asked. Why did you Jong-hyuk and I fight? The party members had seen the scene with their own eyes, but no one asked me about it. Maybe they were instinctively avoiding the topic. Perhaps it was their own consideration as they waited for me to speak first. I was still listening to Yu Senga in my head while I carried the unconscious Yu Jong-hyuk on my back. You mean, you leaked the contents of Ways of Survival through the hole in the fourth wall? Yes. The constellations accepted it as a revelation? That's right. I didn't understand at first. The information sent out of the fourth wall became a revelation to the constellations? In the first place, the role of the revelation in the original novel, no, wait. Don't tell me? There were many things in my head. Yu Senga asked, Doc SSI, have you noticed the fourth wall might be the original words? Yes. I don't know the exact sense but... Originally, the fourth wall is a stage term. A wall separating the play from the wall. The characters in the play would never be able to recognize the fourth wall. It is because they don't exist outside the stage. Outside the stage. It was the reality I lived in. Goosebumps formed on my arms. Indeed, if the name fourth wall had its origins in the same meaning as Yu Senga's description, it was natural there would be a Ways of Survival inside this wall. It was because the contents of Ways of Survival were created in reality. In other words, the revelation was a spoiler that flowed from the novel to reality. One couldn't find the source, so it became a divine revelation in the eyes of the characters. Yu Senga continued speaking. I always thought it was strange. The filtered information about Ways of Survival was suddenly released, however, that time coincided with when I entered the fourth wall. Coincides? Yes, the book blocking the hole I entered through was Ways of Survival. The title could be seen very well. Now I understood everything. The reason why the constellations and demon kings suddenly knew about Ways of Survival. It was why the development that wasn't in the original novel suddenly unfolded. The information they knew had all leaked through the hole in the fourth wall. It is a bit complicated, but this is a good thing. Right? Yu Senga replied with a laugh. She was probably thinking the same thing as me. By the way, I can't use it very often. I noticed a lot of looks. Oh, I'm sorry. I have to go for a minute because the seniors are calling. Then Yusenga's voice disappeared from my head. She was the youngest member of the library, but she had a lot of sense. In any case, thanks to Yusenga's performance, we got a new card to use. The fourth wall allowed me to manipulate the revelations that the constellations received. Until it was revealed to be a false revelation, I could use the information to incite the constellations. Han Sooyoung walked beside me and opened her mouth. You haven't spoken in a while? I was just thinking to myself for a while. You must have a lot of thoughts. Han Sooyoung bit her lips and used midday tryst while talking. What are you going to do now? What else? I have to prepare for the next scenario. The Constellation and Demon War is the 80th scenario, and it will start in a month. Apart from that, Han Sooyoung had a complicated look in her eyes. She was watching Yu Jonghyuk being carried on my back. Do you know what happens when Yu Jonghyuk will wake up? Yu Jonghyuk was aware of the identity of ways of survival. I didn't know what he knew, but I couldn't keep hiding information from him. He might be shocked and receive a terrible wound, but, nevertheless, Han Sooyoung told me. For reference. I am against it. What? The thing you're about to say. Han Sooyoung acted like she knew my thoughts. She sighed lightly and looked at the ground. With your personality, it is strange that you have been hiding it so far. Han Sooyoung seemed to misunderstand me. If I could have hidden it better, I would have hidden as much as I could. If possible, until the end of the story. Han Sooyoung shook her head. You can hide it as much as possible. Just pretend you don't know. Pretend to be a prophet, as you have done so far. Do you think they will believe it? I have to talk now. It isn't just Yu Jonghyuk, but the other party members as well. Han Sooyoung's eyes grew bigger at my words. What nonsense is this? Why are you going to tell them? They deserve to know. I tried it before. However, the characters can't know anything about ways of survival. They think it is just a joke. It might be different now. The filtering is released. Han Sooyoung opened her mouth before closing it again. Instead of pressing me, she searched the faces of the people who didn't know anything. A faint contempt towards me could be seen in Han Sooyoung's eyes. Is it for you, or is it for them? You have already deceived these people. Now you are going to ask for forgiveness? I don't mean to be forgiven. Like Han Sooyoung, I also studied their faces. The strong but delicate Jung Hee-won. The sincere and unsophisticated Lee Hyun-sung. The tough but sweet Lee Jae-hai. The adult but pure Shin Yu-sung. I looked at their faces and recalled the descriptions I knew. Some of them weren't described and others had different faces from the descriptions. They were faces I knew but didn't know. Shin Yu-sung suddenly looked back and waved towards me. I spoke while waving back at the child. I want to be real companions. Han Sooyoung was silent for a long time before quietly turning around and disappearing into the factory. In the distance, a message from her came back like an echo. Didn't I say it clearly? I oppose it. Not long after, we arrived at the factory and each of us took a rest to recover. That evening, I summoned all the members of Kim Dokja's company apart from the unconscious Yu Jonghyuk. I had Bayu block the channel and placed a thick barrier to prevent other constellations from listening. After some preparations, I looked back at the party members. I have something to say to you. I opened my mouth but couldn't speak easily. Perhaps she thought I was playing a joke, but Lee Jae-hai trembled. Ajusi, what is wrong with you all of a sudden? You are scary. I tried to smile at Lee Jae-hai. I had been troubled for a long time. I had been certain that this moment would come. Lee Hyun-sung and Shin Yu-sung were looking at me with worry. I saw the people who were worried about my first, even in this situation, and bit my lips. Some of you. The eyes of the group shook. I saw Han Sooyoung turn away. Then I spoke like I was pulling the trigger. You are characters of a story. Chapter 355. Beyond Good and Evil. Part 5. The expressions of the party members changed at my words. Young Heewon's eyes were wide while Lee Jae-hai looked confused. Lee Hyun-sung had big eyes. Finally, Shin Yu-sung. Kim Dok-ja has the wrong IDEA. The fourth wall was heard in my head. It isn't too la-ti now. I didn't know if it was the will of the fourth wall or the weak part of my mind. The fourth wall reflected my feelings to some extent, so both might be true. Either way, this time I made a decision. I know it is hard to understand my words. I had to tell this story to the group of people. I'll slowly explain it from the beginning. I talked for a long time. One day, the novel I was reading became reality. In that story, I met them. I didn't tell them the whole story, but at the same time, I didn't lie. I knew about the group members before I met them. I didn't speak properly about the fact that I knew the future. I monopolized information alone and deceived people. I spoke about all of it. It was as if I was bringing out the old darkness. A little further away from the party, Han Soo-young was staring at me with a frown. I understood her feelings. It was the same with Han Soo-young of the 1863rd round. However, I couldn't live like Han Soo-young. This story should be done properly. To move forward properly, some stories must be communicated. Someday, just as Yoo Jong-hyuk. I am a regressor. Maybe Yoo Jong-hyuk also felt like me. He knew the future, experienced the same story again and again, and met the party members in countless rounds. Then, he sent them away. I could understand Yoo Jong-hyuk's feelings when he poured out the story without any tricks. Thus, I brought you here. My story was over. Yet no one opened their mouths after the story was over. It wasn't that they didn't understand my story. It was a long story that even a young child could comprehend. Nevertheless, the party members didn't speak. I bowed and continued. I want to sincerely apologize to all of you. I'm really sorry to only be telling you this now. I wanted to know. What was the group thinking? What were they feeling? Even so, I didn't use Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. In this situation, it really would be a deception if I read them using this skill. I wanted to use my own strength without relying on any skills. I wanted to believe that whatever they thought and felt inside, the actions they chose was really their decision. I slowly looked up and met Lee Jae-hai's eyes. Lee Jae-hai's eyes were red. The moment I saw these eyes, I suddenly realized something. I already knew these eyes. Then Master knew all of the future. They were exactly the same as when Lee Jae-hai heard Yoo Jong-hyuk's story. Lee Jae-hai slowly opened her mouth. Then until now, you knew all about the future. As if the original character was reading the given script, Lee Jae-hai spoke. I also responded to her like there was a script. That's right. Yes. Lee Jae-hai gritted her teeth and told me, then now, why are you telling us this? The wounded sword demon was furious. I read the original novel and could predict what she would say. What the hell are we to you? Lee Jae-hai's shoulders trembled slightly as she bowed her head. The situation that followed continued to flow in my mind. Lee Jae-hai would pull out her sword and might attack me because she couldn't suppress her anger. There were many such occasions in the original novel. However, Lee Jae-hai chose a way that I didn't expect at all. Let's say that you knew the future. It was all planned and Ajusi used us for your purpose. Let's say we are characters of that damn ways of survival and everything is set. Lee Jae-hai was crying, watching me while biting her pallid lips. Then, why did you throw your life away for us so many times? I saw the tears falling down her cheeks and tried to open my mouth several times. It was an unexpected question. It was because it was unexpected that I couldn't answer. Answer me. If we are really characters in a fictional novel, why did you die for us over and over? It was a question that I couldn't answer with the ways of survival that I read. The fourth wall is shaking violently. Lee Jae-hai wiped her eyes and hit my shoulder as she walked past me. Young Hee-won hurriedly chased after her. SSI, we'll talk later. Shin Yu-sung hesitated as she stared at me helplessly before following after Jung Hee-won. Lee Hyun-sung had blank eyes as he walked out of the room with a bowed head. The only ones remaining were Han Soo-young, Lee Seol-hwa, and Lee Gil-young. Lee Gil-young was staring at me with complicated eyes, while Lee Seol-hwa bowed her head like she was shocked. Han Soo-young patted Lee Seol-hwa's back and snapped at me. Kim Dokja, leave for a while. A hospital room. I gazed at my mother's sleeping face. I visited the hospital room in the interlude because the party members didn't return after a long time. Since the last major surgery, my mother slept like this all day. She had shaded eyes and haggard cheeks. I peered at my mother's face and was reminded of a time when I visited her in prison. What did my mother think when her son visited her and only talked about a novel? Your expression is dark. You are awake? I woke up from the moment you entered. It was a voice that didn't contain any energy. I dragged a matted blanket up and covered my mother's neck. My mother smiled faintly. It is good to almost die. My son is taking care of me. Get better quickly. Talk to me. Anything is fine. I struggled for a moment before opening my mouth. In the 154th round of Ways of Survival, Yoo Jong-hyuk brought up the story of his regression with the party members. Did you talk to the group about Ways of Survival? How do you know? My mother stretched out her bony hand and grabbed mine. You thought they would blame you. You thought they would feel deceived and ask why you hid the information. It didn't happen like that. You don't know how to seek forgiveness. I silently nodded. Answer me. If we are really characters in a fictional novel, why did you die for us over and over? Lee Jae-hai's voice was revolving in my ears. My mother said, it isn't up to you to decide if it is a matter to forgive. Then, maybe the person behind you can tell you. I turned my head and saw Jung Hee-won standing at the door of the hospital room. I excused myself and left the hospital room. Jung Hee-won scratched her cheeks and suggested, shall we take a walk? We walked down the corridor of the hospital wing. It was a simple corridor where no decorations could be found. It seemed to be Yoo Jong-hyuk's taste. This guy had been tinkering with the factory in the last 3 years. In fact, the end of this corridor contained the hospital room where Yoo Jong-hyuk was lying. Jung Hee-won looked out the window and opened her mouth first. Thank you for telling me. I didn't know how much Jung Hee-won had been troubled before saying this. It was worse because I couldn't see her face. The party members could be seen outside the window. Lee Gil-young and Shin Yu-sung were bickering while Lee Hyun-sung and Lee Seol-hwa comforted Lee Jae-hai. Everyone will be fine. Jae-hai will take a bit of time but, Hee-won SSI. Before I could finish my words, Jung Hee-won turned to look at me. Her face was smiling as usual. I closed my mouth and Jung Hee-won asked, are you surprised because I'm fine? That's not it. No, it isn't. Jung Hee-won had long known that I had future information. Perhaps among the characters, she was the person who knew the most about me. Jung Hee-won spoke as she started stretching. It isn't a big deal. This is a world where monsters and akibis exist. It is something special that turned the novel into a reality. I understand the past now. The reason why Dr. SSI said I didn't appear in the future. Does that mean I wasn't in the novel that Dr. SSI read? Yes. Bayu floated like a cloud and moved above Shin Yusung's head. Jung Hee-won told me, then I was able to safely come here thanks to Dr. SSI. That, Hee-won SSI. Thank you for finding me. I'm not being sarcastic. I mean it sincerely. I knew. I was already familiar with the tone Jung Hee-won used to tease me. Even so, I didn't know what to say. Don't be gloomy and depressed by yourself and look forward to the future. If you like, give me a promotion faster. Now, this is a handshake to cheer up. Jung Hee-won grabbed my hand with a strong force. Something warm suddenly rose inside me. I firmly bit my lips. Jung Hee-won, she isn't okay. I could feel the pulse from Jung Hee-won's hand. She would also be sad. She would be in pain and it would be hard for her. Even so. Young Hee-won held my hand tightly for a while, before letting go with a smile. Then she asked, "By the way, Dr. SSI. I have a question." "Yes, ask." "If this world is a novel, it means there is a protagonist." As expected, Young Hee-won was sharp. I told the group about ways of survival, but I didn't say who the protagonist was. However, Young Hee-won was already aware of the identity of the protagonist. Young Hee-won was staring at the end of the corridor. "Is that why you were fighting?" "I haven't exactly spoken to him, but it seems so." "Since you started it, you need to see the end properly." "Do you know?" I nodded. "That person won't be easy." I knew. Still, it couldn't be avoided. For the next 2 days, I was in Yoo Jong-hyuk's hospital room. I hardly met with other people. I was worried but decided to remain calm. I believed that the people needed time to think. It wouldn't be too late to talk once the party members were ready. Yoo Jong-hyuk still didn't wake up. The wounds of his flesh have almost recovered. I think Kid is a problem of the mind. A problem of the mind? It seems he is refusing to wake up, perhaps he experienced a severe shock. Those were Eileen's words. She exchanged the story pack and left, leaving only Yoo Jong-hyuk and I in the room. The floating dust settled on his nose. I opened my mouth while watching Yoo Jong-hyuk. You grabbed me first and dropped me down the bridge. I knew he couldn't hear me, but I still wanted to talk. "Get your hand off me and get lost, you damn jerk." I believe you. You are definitely a prophet. The first time I encountered him on the bridge. Suddenly, a laugh emerged. Honestly, you aren't in a position to blame me for anything. You are a regressor. How many people died because of you? Once I started speaking, the memories poured out like a waterfall. It was like Pandora's box. It felt as if a lot of time had passed. I had spent a lot of time with this person. I thought I understood you better than anyone, but I don't know these days. Why did you do that during the flood of disasters? That person is my companion. Why did you call me a companion? You wouldn't say that normally. Stabbing me in Dark Castle, even though I told you to kill me at the time. Kim Dokja. No. Kim Dokja. Every single memory caused numerous emotions to rise. The scenarios, which were really serious at the time, became stories once they were over. We were left with the stories. Still, I am grateful for the revolutionary game. I lived at that time because of you. Still, it is weird. Why did you sell my name when hitting the wrong industrial complex? Well, maybe you were trying to fuck with me. I poured out the things I was thinking about and gradually became sleepy. I hadn't slept properly. The complaints continued even as my consciousness dimmed. The times I fought with him passed like I was reading Ways of Survival. The disaster of questions. The strongest sacrifice. Peaceland. The tomb of the scenario. The Demon King selection and Gigantomachia. It was hard to find a battlefield where I didn't fight with him. I thought back on those times. Perhaps it will be okay. I could convince him somehow if it was the Yoo Jong-hyuk I knew. We had never talked about it properly. What if I took the time to explain it step by step? It was Yoo Jong-hyuk, not someone else. I could see Yoo Jong-hyuk's back in the distance. I forgot it was a dream and approached him. Yoo Jong-hyuk. At this moment, there was a stinging pain from my head and words appeared. It was a scene from Ways of Survival. The scene where Yoo Jong-hyuk was betrayed by Anna Croft and lived miserably. They were the last words Yoo Jong-hyuk left. I will absolutely never forgive you. Yoo Jong-hyuk turned around and spoke to me. Killing energy was emitted from the black demon sword. Kim Dokja. I felt a coolness from my neck and woke up. I gasped while sweating before realizing it was a dream. The dim moonlight was coming in through the window. It was a bare hospital room. I slowly rubbed my eyes. Then I realized something was wrong. Yoo Jong-hyuk? The bed was empty. Yoo Jong-hyuk couldn't be seen anywhere in the room. The selected ringer solution was floating in the air. I hurriedly got up, but I couldn't feel Yoo Jong-hyuk anywhere. On the bed, the pocket watch with the familiar design remained. The remaining time until the Constellation and Demon War was 26 days. On this day, Yoo Jong-hyuk left Kim Dokja's company.